Mm, what we are going to discuss today is about age-related macular degeneration. So, here to start with, these are the contents which we will be discussing about its anatomy, circulation, and how the pathophysiology is, and then what are all the diagnostic procedure to the treatment and the clinical decisions. Okay, so we all know to go in deep before going in deep. So we'll just recap the layers of retina. So make sure good, because these layers are the basics of for you to learn much. So make sure you learn the layers of the retina. If you want to learn in much detail, go look into the other videos uh, which teaches about that. Okay, so coming to the fovea, it is like we all know fovea is located temporal to the optic disc, and then it is being divided into uh, anatomically it can be divided into fovea, parafovea, and perifovea. And then fovea is at the diameter of 1 millimeter, parafovea is at diameter of 3 millimeter, and perifovea is at the diameter of 5 millimeters. Okay, so okay, what is degeneration of macula, and what, what kind of impairment that it causes? So when there is a degeneration of a macula, there will be a reduction in the visual acuity, visual field will be lost, then the contrast sensitivity will again be going low. So the characteristics of uh, degeneration is drusen with vision loss, or there would be a RPE changes, then there would be a geographical atrophy, and uh, there might be a choroidal neovascularization membrane which is being formed. Okay, we all had discussed what is drusen before, and then it is a yellow deposit, and it is a hyaline material. And coming to exudates, again it can be divided into hard and soft exudates. Hard exudates, it may uh, may not cause a visual problem, but it is very smaller, and then whereas in case of a soft exudate, it is larger and it forms like a cluster. Then there is a other classification called as calcified drusen, which is a regression of drusen, and then there would be a hypo or hyperpigmentation over the surface of a RPE. Okay, so the pigment epithelial detachment, it is like it is a sharp demarcated dome shaped elevation of the RPE filled with serous fluid. So there would be a when we looked into PCV, it is like we had checked, we had clearly described what is how a dome shaped detachment look like. So may kindly go uh, recap that, and then it is like uh, there would be a serous fluid accumulation. So it is like further it can be divided into uh, fibrovascular pigment epithelial detachment, serous PED, drusenoid PED, and hemorrhagic PED. So it is like name themselves tell what exactly they look like, or what are their characteristics. So here is a geographical atrophy. Okay, so this tells you how a geographical atrophy of degeneration looks like. Okay, then comes a CNVM. CNVM, it is a sprout from chorea capillaris, and it is like growth of abnormal blood vessels between the RPE and neurosensory retina, or Brooks and the RPE. So and then topographically they can be seen at the subfoveal junction and juxtafoveal and extrafoveal regions. In case of angiographic photography, they can be divided into two two interpretation. They are classic and then the occult. So these are the types of CNVM, and then again coming to the classifications, it can be divided into four categories, where first three is little in the safer side. So we'll just see how the medications goes in the upcoming slides. So category 1, according to age related eye disease study research group, is when there is no ARMD. Then category 2 is when there is early changes of AMD. Then the intermediate, then the advanced, which is a category 4. So among that, again pathophysiologically, AMD can be divided into a dry and wet. So dry is proposed mechanism. uh, Dry is where you will be able to see a drusen and there won't be much of hemorrhages, whereas in case of wet you will be able to see a hemorrhages. So in this case the photoreceptor, the mechanism of coming, just looking about mechanism of AMD, the photoreceptor and retinal pigment epithelium, there there will be a ischemia due to decreased choroidal and Brooks member perfusion, and then there would be a which will lead to a loss of RPA, which is apoptosis of RPA due to inflammatory and immunity responses. Then there would be a genetic abnormalities which affects the photoreceptor. So this is how you can actually see differentiate what is dry and wet. So see here, it is like, as I said, there would be a hemorrhage in the wet. You will be able to see the breakage and then the blood being popped in, whereas in case of a dry, it is there only a local apoptosis, or there would be a geographical atrophies, and this is how a normal macula looks like. Okay, so this is how we see it in a fundus camera, where it is fundus photography. So this is how a dry AMD with drusens looks like, and then this is with geographical atrophy. Then here is a wet AMD which hemorrhage. Okay, so again coming to the classification, this is like category 1 is characterized by when there is no or fewer drusens in which is of less than 63 millimicrons in diameter. In case of yearly, there would be multiple drusens, and in case of there might be somewhere between drusens of diameter 63 to 124 micrometers, and then there would be a mild RPA abnormalities. Coming to the intermediate age-related macular degeneration, there would be a multiple drusens again, and the diameter of the drusen would be more than 125 micrometers, and then there would be a geographical atrophy seen. Okay, in case of advanced, which is a wet, so it is like, as I said before, category 1, 2 or 3 is not going to cause you much of, though they are going to cause, they are not that severe. So here category 4 is a wet, whereas other categories are considered to be dry. So here there would be a characteristic of geographical atrophy, and then there would be a neovascular maculopathy which is being seen with the fundus examination. Okay, so neovascular, other classification can be given, is the choroidal neovascularization, then the serous and hemorrhagic detachment of the neurosensory retina, then based on the retinal hard exudates would be seen in case of a neovascular maculopathy, then subretinal and sub-RP fibrovascular proliferation will be seen, and then there would be a deciform scar which is a fibrosis. So these are the characteristics of neovascular maculopathy. Then so here, what are all the risk factors coming to the age-related macular degeneration is a again, which is a non-modifiable risk factor, which is aging. So adding to that, so smoking, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and then the level of antioxidants, diet intake, and other genetic factors and ethnicity also plays a role. Okay. So in case of a dry AMD, there would be initially asymptomatic, and then there would be a gradual loss of vision in one or both the eyes. When it comes to wet, there would be acute loss, and then there would be a severe one. Okay, so mostly both the cases there would be a central scotoma and photopsia, difficulty in dark adaptation. Once the AMD develops in one eye, there is a more than 40% of chance that would get developed in the other eye. Coming to the clinical evaluation, you have to identify patient as risk of visual loss, which is related to age-related macular degeneration. Educate the patient as well as the family about the disease and the risk factors, so that if their daily lifestyle is a contributing factor, then they can get reduced. So sooner you do, so it is like for more the better. So help patient identify the specialist or expertise and find the resources to facilitate the visual rehabilitation. So coming to the clinical evaluations, you have to look into the Amsler grid because they might, in the early cases, they might come up with the distortion, which then check for 90D and 78D and direct scope, and then the screening test, which can be a non-mydriatic fundus imaging. Okay, so then comes the diagnostic factors, which involves OCT, FFE, ICG, and microperimetry. So coming to OCT is a non-invasive imaging technology which has high resolution, provides cross-sectional images of the retina, and provides a three-dimensional image where you can assess the structural abnormalities of retina, choroid, and the optic disc. So here mostly the OCTs are interpreted with hyper, moderate, and hyper reflective spots, and these are the different layers which reflect those kind of reflections among the various retinal layers. Okay, so this is how a normal OCT looks like, and then these are the different layers with different moderate, low, and high reflective spots. Okay, this is again a grayscale image which is showing the normal foveal contour in the OCT image. So see, this is how retina bulges up when there is a subretinal fluid, and then when there is and in this case it has a clear fluid, or there would be a which is leading to a detachment of the retina. So coming to the types of PED, as we said before, it is like it can be divided into serous PED, fibrovascular PED, hemorrhagic, and drusenoid PED. So here, in case of a serous PED, this is how it actually looks like. It will be sharply demarcated, and then there will be a smooth dome-shaped elevation. Okay, and you will be able to see a optically empty space. Okay, so when it comes to fibrovascular PED, there would be irregular elevation of RPE. Then there would be a inferior detachment, and then there would be you will be able to visualize a SRF presence in the space here. Okay, when it comes to hemorrhagic PED, you will have a dome shape with the choroidal sclera which is not visible, because when it passes on, the blood here blocks the image, blocks us from imaging the structures below. So when there is a blood, you won't be able to see the structures beyond here. So that's why it blocks the choroid and the sclera. So when it comes to drusenoid, you will be able to fairly there will be a fairly well circumcision, and you will be finding it shallow, and then there will be a multiple elevations. Okay, so here is an example of a drusen, how you will be able to see. It is like look here how multiple elevations are there, and then how it circumscribed. So coming to again types of drusen, it is again divided into soft, hard drusens, and the compound drusens. So, soft drusens are loose, amorphous, and then they don't have a defined border. So this is how you define soft exudates. When it comes to hard exudates, they are well they have a well lineated borders, and then there will be a solid or hyalinated contents in the drusen. When it comes to compound drusen, it is a place where junction, or it is which is a portion intermediate between the soft and the hard drusens. So coming to the blood supply, it involves it involves artery, veins and the capillaries. This is how the structure of arteries, veins and the capillaries looks like. So both arteries and veins will have a collagen, muscle and the elastin, whereas the innermost layer is the endothelium, whereas in case of a capillary it is a single row of endothelial cells. So in coming to the retinal layers and the blood supply, you will be able to see a blood supply, superficial blood supply or superficial network of capillaries at the nerve fiber layer, and then there will be a deep network and in the inner nuclear layer. So coming to the we all know the blood supply is dual. So one is through the central retinal artery and retinal circulation, and other is the choroidal circulation. So when it comes to the central retina, the inner half of it supplies the inner half of the retina, and then there is a tight junction, and then there would be inner retinal barrier. When the choroid supplies the outer half of the retina, and then there will be outer retinal barrier. So both together are called as the blood retinal barrier. Okay, so this is how the blood retinal barrier actually looks like. So if you look here, there is a tight junction which will not allow the blood to flow in here. So when these tight junctions are loosened up, there will be blood which is going up. So that's how a hemorrhage is seen. So then comes the other investigating tools, which is the FFA, which allows the study of the circulation of the retina. We had a good explanation of fundus fluorescent angiography in the previous classes, so kindly go through it for a better understanding. So here in this case we'll just have a recap of what is going on. So we all know fluorescent absorbs a light of shorter wavelength and then emits a longer wavelength, so it helps in better imaging. We use fundus just because it binds better with the blood, and then they do not cross the blood retinal barrier. So here FFA, before taking an FFA, you have to check whether it is allergic to fluorescent, whether the patient is allergic to fluorescent, whether the that should be checked with the current medication which they take, and then there would be you have to check for other renal diseases and the blood pressure, etc. Okay, so these are the different stages of FFA, and these are the time which you have to look into the fundus, or you have to capture the image to capture the various stages of FFA. So this is a normal FFA. Then as we said before, again FFA emits autofluorescent, hyperfluorescent. So we had discussed much in detail about all these things in the previous videos which explains FFA, so kindly go through that for better information. So here in case of autofluorescent, this is where how a normal structure actually reflects the light. This is a hyperfluorescent due to leakage of blood. This is hyperfluorescent. This might be because it is like there might be media opacities or blood in front of the retina. Okay, so here coming to the treatment can be of medical, surgical or interventional treatment. Okay, so here in case of first three categories, as I said before, they would be categorized as dry, and then mostly you will either no need any medication or you will need a medication supply. So whereas category 4 needs a rigorous treatment, which we will be seeing in the upcoming slide. So here these are the supplements which we are giving for in case if it is a dry AMD. Okay, so kindly have a look at this table so that it helps you at better understanding. So when Category 4 is a wet one, so which needs a surgical or laser intervention. So in case of a laser, you will be able to you give a laser photocoagulation at these junctions, and then these are the different layers which these are the different locations where different layers are used for better uh, results. So then the second option is the photodynamic therapy, which you have to give every 3 months, and then the angiogenic therapy. So you might have to go with the injections and for a better treatment. Okay, so coming to the clinical decisions, as an optometrist, you have to have a comprehensive eye examination with the detailed history and symptoms, then identify the clinical signs, categories as per the severity. So once you categorize that, you will be better understand you will be able to better understand, and then you will have a susceptible of being exposed to the risk. Category 1, how to consider whether they are susceptible to being exposed to risk. If yes, then ask them to avoid, just like in case if it is a smoking, ask them to avoid those things. Then no, if no, have a regular follow-up. In case of category 2 and 3, have a medical management. Category 4, as I said, you'll have to go for a retina surgeons and then look into better treatments. So coming to the management, these are the low vision. You have to when there is a severe loss, you have to go with the low vision, orientation, and mobility and rehabilitation training for the patients. So these are the reference. Kindly have a look for better reading. So if you want to read further, you can go through this. Thank you.